Well, welcome everybody to another edition of the DFO DFS show for Friday, April 9th. Hope everyone's having a wonderful Friday. As you can see, not in the normal office, but we'll make it work nonetheless today. We have a 7-game slate on our hands this evening, and pretty interesting slate. Like, obviously, first off, I'd like to say sorry for not going live yesterday. We just too much going on with a 10-game slate. Obviously, they get a little busy for me, so sometimes I got to prioritize the actual website over the DFO DFS show. So, yesterday was a write-off for me. So anyways, thank you guys so much for joining me for this Friday edition. Is today really Friday? Because I'm sorry. Hey, it's my first Friday in a while, but as you can see, obviously still doing other things, but I felt like I had the need to do today's show after missing yesterday. Sean ran the Stars back last night and it paid off big time. Yeah. I didn't even get a chance to play last night. But if I would have definitely played Dallas 1 again. They were just another nice spot, but just obviously much better than the first go around. So, obviously let us down the first time around, but much better last night. But anyways, let's open up here. I got to probably be relatively quick today since it's Friday. So 7-game slate on our hands. We start with the New Jersey Devils and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Unclear who starts the Devils, but with Aaron Dell going last night, I believe Scott Wedgwood started the game before. Most likely we're going to see Mackenzie Blackwood for the Devils tonight, I would imagine. Casey DeSmith starts for the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Islanders will most likely turn to Semyon Varlamov on the tail end of a back-to-back. Alexander Georgiev confirmed for the Rangers, also back-to-back for them. The Sabres also on a back-to-back as well. Dustin Tokarski confirmed for the Sabres. Vitek Vanacek goes for the Capitals. The Blues host the Minnesota Wild. It will be Jordan Binnington coming off of a 50-save performance against the Golden Knights. And the Wild will turn to Kaapo Kähkönen. At 10 o'clock, we've got the Golden Knights hosting the Arizona Coyotes. Most likely going to see Robin Lehner. He was the first goaltender off the ice this morning for the Golden Knights. Adin Hill, I believe it's his 7th consecutive start for the Coyotes. And then we've got the Ducks and the Avalanche. So as of right now, this game appears like it is still going to be a go. The Avalanche did have to cancel their morning skate because of a COVID-19 positive test. So no information from them at all. Normally we do at least get a goalie confirmation out of them, maybe some line combinations. So no morning skate. Somebody is positive. It's unclear who it is. So, if it's Nathan McKinnon or Mikko Rantanen, it changes things, but we don't know anything as of now. So tread lightly with that game, especially if you're kind of only building one lineup. Don't want that to just kind of ruin your entire night if you play Colorado 1 and it's Nathan McKinnon. But as of right now, I haven't seen anything. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're building your lineups this evening. And then the nightcap is the Sharks and the Kings. We've got Martin Jones confirmed for the Sharks and nobody confirmed for the Kings, which is pretty much standard procedure with the LA Kings. So those are your goaltenders for tonight's 7-gamer. We will open the show here with the Devils and the Penguins. So as is pretty much customary, if you've been watching this show, throughout the entire season. Pittsburgh 1 grades out very well again tonight. But New Jersey 1 actually looks pretty good as well. And then the rest of the line's not so much. Varlamov has owned the Rangers, haven't they? Honestly, I'm not 100%. I believe he has just outstanding numbers against the Rangers, though, at least this season. But let's talk about the Devils and the Penguins first. So it looks like New Jersey 1, as they've been doing throughout the entirety of this season. They are going to get Jack Hughes out there against the middle 6, the bottom 6 as much as they can, and avoid the big lines. It's kind of difficult to really project how things are going to work out since the Devils lineup is kind of new. With Noah Zajac now. So we're projecting 63% of the ice time to go to the McLeod line, going head-to-head with Pittsburgh 1. But I wouldn't be surprised if things change pretty drastically now that Zajac's not there, now that they're on home ice. So it could be a little bit more Pavel Zacha against Crosby. We might even see a little bit more Jack Hughes now that Zajac is no longer in the lineup. So I would take these matchups with a grain of salt a little bit, just because it's pretty unclear exactly how all these matchups are going to shake out this first go around. So as of now, though, I would project Crosby to see quite a bit of everybody except for the Jack Hughes line is what I would imagine will happen, and then Jack Hughes will see mostly everybody but Crosby. Graham, Burn, I know how to pronounce it now, asked, will the Devils PP suffer without Palmieri? I mean, yeah, most likely the Devils PP, not all that great to begin with. The worst on the entire slate tonight. So yeah, like taking Palmieri out of that power play is definitely going to affect them without question. But I mean, it's not like it was a great unit to begin with anyway. So, taking Palmieri out of the equation is definitely not going to make them any better. That is for sure. But yeah, so we'll start here with Pittsburgh 1. Like I mentioned, they're going to see mostly, you would imagine, the bottom 6 of the Devils, and the top 6 will kind of face the bottom 6 of the Penguins for the Devils. So Pittsburgh 1's been pretty solid. 29 scoring chances for, 12 high danger, really solid numbers. Nothing incredible, but pretty solid altogether. What really always boosts them, especially with Malkin out, has been their elite usage. I mean, 33% of the 5v5 ice time, if we take a look down the list here, I mean, nobody even comes close to that. So that kind of boosts their overall upside, and that's why their 5v5 score is usually considerably higher than it probably would be based on their overall offensive numbers. So the ice time is terrific. And then if they see quite a bit, of the bottom 6 here, I mean, the Devils' bottom 6 is pretty solid defensively. Slightly above average defensively, but it's not. They're not great. I mean, 52.9% Corsi for is solid, but 45.7 is obviously terrible. So it's not a matchup that you should be really scared about. I mean, the Devils have not played all that great recently, so overall, Pittsburgh looks like they're in a pretty good spot tonight. You got the Devils on a back-to-back. I mean, obviously the Penguins are too, but at least, the Devils are also on a back-to-back. So I do like Pittsburgh 1 quite a bit tonight. The only concern would be obviously their price, $7,500 for Gensel, $7,500 for Crosby, $6,800 for Brian Rust. Pretty expensive on the grand scheme of things for the entire slate tonight. That makes them the second highest price line to full stack, second to Nathan McKinnon in Colorado 1. So, Pittsburgh 1 has got to be among the top targets for, on tonight's slate, just because the Devils have struggled as of late. But to turn the page over to the other side here, New Jersey 1, as I mentioned, we are projecting about 70% of their ice time to come against the middle 6 of the Devils. The middle 6 of the Penguins, excuse me. The middle 6 of the Penguins has been pretty solid. The second line's been really, really good even without Malkin. I mean, 57% Corsi for, 55 expected goal for percentage is really solid. The third line has not been quite as good, especially offensively. They're just basically the entire bottom 6 of the Penguins is a black hole of offense. But New Jersey 1 has been, really, really solid. Jack Hughes obviously doesn't have the greatest floor ever, but that line is averaging 31 scoring chances for, 10 and a half high danger chances for per 60. So they're a pretty interesting line tonight, just because I would assume that they'll have extremely low own percentage. The Penguins have had their struggles this season keeping the puck out of their own net at times. So, we've talked about Sharon Govich quite a bit on this show about how he provides a very nice, stable floor, especially at his price, which is, it's remained pretty steady right around 4,000 throughout the entirety of the season. So he looks solid at 4,000. Jack Hughes under 5K, 4,700 looks really solid as well. So, it's not a line that I'm totally in love with, but if you're building multiple lineups, I think you'll want to have a little bit of exposure to them. Because I think that they can, get on the board tonight for sure. Are they maybe not like the, I guess, highest upside line? Probably, but they have some upside for sure. Second game of the night, we got the Islanders and the Rangers. So in this game, you've got Vitaly Kravtsov is going to move up by the looks of things. At least that's what happened in the middle of last game to the Artemi Panarin line, which is very interesting. Very talented young player. The Rangers would not commit to whether or not that was what was going to happen in tonight's game or not. Colin Blackwell playing there, it hasn't gone great. It's gone okay at times. Capo Caco is solid there, but Kravtsov deserves a look, I would assume. So, if he moves up, I mean, he is super talented at 2,500, right? Like, super talented player to be playing on a line with Panarin and Strome, which has been red hot at 2,500. So I do like Kravtsov quite a bit. It's kind of just worth the punt at the minimum price to say, hey, hopefully he ends up actually playing there at minimum price. But overall, the problem is New York never grades out very well at 5v5 because they just aren't that good of a 5v5 team. And like, I get burned on the show probably more by them than any other line in the entire NHL because they suck at 5v5 for the most part. I shouldn't say suck. That's probably too harsh, but they're not very good at 5v5. And then they go into a game and then they score 8 goals because they go like 6 for 8 on the power play or something. Like, it's just insane. So I think like it's a tough matchup. The Islanders are good. As mentioned, Varlamov has got pretty good numbers against them this year. Islanders 1, Islanders 2, both grayed out as the only lines that are positive in this game. For whatever reason, Islanders 1 actually has performed pretty admirably with Leo Komarov up there. Based off of the information that I have, it doesn't look like there's going to be any changes to the Islanders lineup tonight. So then that just leads me to believe that there won't be any changes to their lines either. Obviously, it would be much more appealing if Kyle Palmieri was there, if Anthony Beauvillier was there, if John Gabriel Pajot was playing on the top line. With Komarov, it is what it is. You just mini stack Barzal and Eberle. But let's get into the matchups here. So the Barzal-Eberle duo is expected to basically just see the bottom 6 of the Rangers. If we take a peek there, the bottom 6 of the Rangers is actually performing a little bit better than they had been earlier in the season, but both lines don't provide a whole lot in the way of offense. They're okay defensively, but Islanders 1 looks like they have a pretty solid matchup tonight. I wouldn't be nervous about going up head-to-head against the Kakko, Heidel, Lafreniere line, and I would not worry about going up against Rooney and Brett Howden, or I think it's Phil DiGiuseppe, maybe. I don't remember who the third member is, but either way, not a very great bottom 6. Like I think obviously they've got a bright future there with New York 3. All 3 of those pieces very high draft picks and will be good down the road. But right now they're not getting anything done offensively, so I would avoid them. But I think it's a decent matchup for the Islanders top line. The second line, they're getting better. Slowly but surely, the numbers are starting to improve. The problem with them is they play such a low-event game that, like, they might score a goal or score a couple goals even, but the shot volume is going to be so minimal, right? Like, their floor is just not great, but their ceiling is still solid because, Nelson Bailey and Beauvillier, they're a very talented second line. But the problem is you don't get quite the floor they don't quite get the floor that you would hope for. Graham says, is New York 3 a sneaky play? I don't think so, realistically. Like, they're going to see a lot of this advantage ad line. They're going to see a lot of the third line. And the problem is, like, these numbers aren't great, right? This is Palmieri. This is Zajac. This is their numbers together when they were in New Jersey. Now you got John Gabriel Pajot. I just don't love Travis Zajac. I mean, he's like 35 years old. He's a good center. From a fantasy perspective, he's not. I just don't like him from a fantasy perspective. He doesn't produce much in the way of offense. All of his, every line he ever plays on always gets tough matchups, and it's just difficult for him to get anything going offensively. I'd have a little bit more interest in Palmieri if he was on that top power play unit. He's not. Matt Martin is still playing the net front role on that top power play unit as of last night, so sorry about that if you guys can hear all the screaming. It's geez Louise. I don't love them tonight. I mean, I think that eventually Palmieri is going to get up there. He's going to move up that lineup and he'll look solid. Maybe Pajot moves up the lineup and he'll look solid. But whatever line Zajac plays on really doesn't get a whole lot going offensively. So I probably am not going to go there tonight. It doesn't look great. When you turn over to the Rangers side of things, it looks okay, but they just, I don't know, they're just not very good offense or at 5v5. So let me just try to get some screaming stop. Obviously someone loves NY3 Lockaband. Yeah. Game is canceled. Anyways, okay. So we've got on the New York side of things, the Zibanejad line's going to see the middle 6 of the Islanders. The Panarin line's probably going to play mostly against the second and fourth line. So I can't get behind this. I can't get behind New York 1. Like Zibanejad has had that line's had a tough time throughout the course of the season. I think what I would do is probably go a little bit, again, like I said, after that second line. Panarin is really expensive at $8,600. Strome, $6,400, pretty pricey still. But Kravtsov brings the overall salary down to $17,500. So in terms of the power play, though, they still look really good, right? I mean, they get more power plays than almost everybody in the league. The Islanders are pretty disciplined, but that's where you're going to get the value is out of them on the power play. So to me, I would still just kind of go after Strome and Panarin, they seem to be kind of the more focal points on that power play unit. And then you can include Kravtsov at minimum price and just hope that it works. I can't, I know that they've had big games, but I just continuously struggle with paying up for New York 1. I mean, Kreider 5,700, Zibanejad up to 8,100. It's just really difficult for what they do. For what they do at 5v5, it's very difficult. Yeah, I don't think Kaylee likes the Rangers Islanders game much at all. It's calmer over there than in my house, so don't sweat the kids. Yeah, sorry about that. I think we got it under control. So talking about the third game now, we've got the Sabres and the Capitals. This is an interesting game because the Sabres seem to be playing better, but they still aren't very good. And I still am not a big believer in Dustin Tokarski. Obviously, he hasn't won a game yet. 904 save percentage on the season. I think that this is a decent game for the Capitals. I think that the problem with the Capitals is that they're probably going to be pretty popular. And that scares me a little bit because the Capitals, again, they're another one of these teams like the Rangers that aren't that great on 5v5. Their power play has not been all that effective this year either. So, Buffalo is extremely disciplined. It's very tough to get behind the Capitals at high ownership. So the way I like this game, if you're playing in the big GPPs, I think that maybe, maybe you take a crack at Washington 3, perhaps. They've got a pretty good matchup against the top 6 of the Sabres. Both lines are below average defensively, excuse me. Obviously, Washington 3 is not great. Verona is ice cold, but you get them at a very reasonable price. 4,100 for Verona, 5,100 for Kuznetsov. This is actually going to be Daniel Sprong now. I don't know what his price is. Let me pull that up. So I think that's an interesting way to kind of get off some of the chalkier lines from the Capitals. I think Ovechkin's obviously going to carry some of the highest ownership on the slate. He's 9,100. They had a pretty good night. Oshie had a great night last night. So I think that they'll be pretty high owned, and I'm not totally in love with it just because, as I mentioned, they're not that great at 5v5. I mean, the entire top 6 grades out below average at 5v5 offensively. And the Sabres are playing okay. Like I've mentioned before, even when the Sabres were playing bad, they weren't getting totally crushed. They weren't getting run out of the building on a nightly basis. They were holding their own. They just couldn't win. They couldn't score. So I think this is a spot where, the Sabres probably continue to struggle offensively a little bit, but I think that the Capitals could be a little bit limited in what they offer. Verona healthy scratch 2 games didn't really help his game. And I'm a Verona defender. Labs won't give him minutes. A bit scared of that. Yeah, they looked okay. They actually played a decent amount of minutes last night. I like it a little bit more that Kuznetsov has dropped down there. They looked solid. They looked okay last night. I'm not saying it's a surefire play. I don't even then they don't provide great numbers. I just don't love the Capitals at 5v5. So I just think that, if you want to get exposure to the Capitals and you don't want to pay up for the big dogs at high ownership, then I think that the third line is at least, a decent pivot spot. I agree that I don't love it, but it's I think it's just a decent pivot, and you might be able to get lucky at a pretty low salary, 9,200 combined for the two of them. And if you want to include Sprong, he's 3,300. So not terrible there. I just don't, and I can't really get behind the Sabres. I have played them a little bit as of late. I think the one guy that interests me a little bit is Taige Thompson. He struggled, throughout his NHL career, in the early portions, but he's just been a shot volume machine lately at 3,100. So I do like Taige Thompson. I'm probably not going to go after that top line because where's their matchups? They're going to see quite a bit of the, the top 9 of the Capitals, which is pretty solid defensively. Like I mentioned, the Capitals struggle offensively at 5v5, but overall they're not a bad 5v5 team. They're just boring. They just don't. There's just no substance to their game. Outside of the Ovechkin line, pretty solid in terms of their Corsi 4. All 4 lines are above average in expected goals for percentage, so they're just pretty boring, all things considered, and that's not something you're looking for when you're playing the Buffalo Sabres, right? They need to get as many chances as possible because they lack talent across the board. So, all right, St. Louis and Minnesota. St. Louis 1 looks really good again tonight. I mentioned them the other night, and it was actually Schwartzstein and Tarasenko. They got off to a blistering start. Tarasenko should have had 2 in the first period. They cooled off as the game progressed, but they look like they're in a pretty decent spot tonight. But this game actually looks kind of enticing to me. So let's just take a look here. St. Louis 1 is expected to see roughly 60% of their ice time against the top 6 of the Wild. The Wild went back to I'll just pull it up. It's way easier to just show you than to try to remember all of them. They went back to the Kirill Kaprizov, Victor Rask, and Matt Zuccarello line. Johansson now plays with Eriksson Ek and Greenway. So, if you watched the show before, that's Kaprizov line struggles. They're not very good defensively. The Eriksson Ek line has struggled defensively since Marcus Foligno got hurt. So that looks like a pretty good matchup for St. Louis 1. They haven't been great. Obviously, they've been solid, just slightly above average, but 30 scoring chances, 4 per 60, 10 high danger. I can get behind it, I think. As for the rest of the Blues, terribly offensively. So it just doesn't look that appealing. That's really the only line that I would go after. The good news, though, is all 4 lines for the Blues right now look not very good defensively. So Minnesota makes a little bit of sense tonight as well by the looks of things. I just don't really know who to target. To me, I think it just basically has to be that top line. Like, none of these other lines really they don't really get me excited. Like, they're not very good. Maybe it's a little bit of Fiala. Maybe I think the way to do it is maybe just go more of the power play route. The Blues penalty kill is terrible. The Wild's power play is starting to come around. The Wild draw a ton of penalties. The Blues take a ton of penalties. I think that might be a way to target this game because it's hard to really find anything that works at 5v5. The Wild's power play was a joke early in the year, at least from a percentage standpoint, but they are talented enough to get things going. So I think Minnesota power play, which if we take a look at their power play with 1, is Kaprizov, Rask, Bonino, Fiala. So I think that maybe if you go like Kaprizov, Spurgeon, Fiala is probably the way to do that tonight. I just don't love Minnesota, but that looks like the way to do it if you do want to play them. I mean, you get Fiala 5,500, Kaprizov 6,300. Very nice. So David just asked Binnington another big game tonight. I don't know. Maybe he looked great against the Golden Knights, but I think the main takeaway from that game is just how bad the Blues are defensively right now, right? Like, obviously, the Golden Knights are very talented offensively. They're a good team. But giving up 50 shots, I mean, that's no joke, right? So I think that was my main takeaway. Less about how good Binnington looked, which was fine. One game is whatever. Most of the season, he hasn't been great. So I think Minnesota has a chance tonight. I just don't know. It's very difficult to narrow down which line to target with the new lines. So to me, I would kind of try to just build around their power play. And then St. Louis 1 on that side of the puck. But the one thing also I'll worth mentioning, because I haven't looked at it yet, the goalies tonight. Kaapo Kähkönen actually grades out as the best goaltender option on the entire slate. So if you want to fade St. Louis, then I think that's definitely a decent idea. In terms of Vegas, Kaapo Kähkönen right around the middle of the pack tonight. But in terms of the shot volume he's expected to see, pretty solid. And in the expected goals against, he's expected to allow third best. So all of that together, including his season thus far, makes him the number 1 goalie on tonight's slate. Philip Grubauer, number 2, Casey Smith, number 3, Cal Peterson, number 4, and Robin Lehner, number 5. So a nice collection of different priced goaltenders there at the top. Speaking of Robin Lehner, they host the Coyotes. So in that game, Vegas 1 and Vegas 2 look really, really good. Arizona 1 still looks okay, but not great. And the Vegas 3 actually is above average as well. So in this game, Vegas 2 is going to see a lot of the Nick Schmaltz line. Vegas 3 is going to see a lot of the Christian Dvorak line. And then the Stevenson line is going to kind of pick up all the scraps. So Arizona defensively, you really want to try to target their second and third lines is really what you want to get after. And who's going to play the most against the second and third lines? Well, it's probably going to be Vegas 1, Vegas 3. It's going to be kind of a collection of them, right? There's no real way to target them. But the fact that Vegas 3 is going to see 46% of their ice time against Arizona 2, which struggles defensively, looks pretty appealing. So as I mentioned the other night, they could be trending towards becoming the new Colorado 3 in a way. And, you get Alex Tuch and Nosek. I'd probably leave Keegan Kolesar off, but Tuch and Nosek as a mini stack for 7,500 is pretty appealing, as value plays tonight. So I do like them there in that spot. If you obviously want to pay up and build your lineup a little bit more around Vegas, both the top six looks really good right now. I was all over Vegas too there for a period of time because of the way that the power plays were laid out. That's not quite the way it's going to be anymore. It's actually going to be the entire top line now that is featured on the top power play. So Vegas 1 now becomes a little bit more appealing because of that. So I'm trending a little bit more towards Vegas 1 tonight, but I still think that I like Vegas 2 a little bit more just because their price is just still too good. I don't really understand why their price doesn't change. They've been very successful this season. 5,600 for Marcia, so 5,200 for Carlson, 3,800 for Smith. So it depends on how you're building. I think the higher upside play tonight is Vegas 1. The higher ownership is going to be Vegas 1 as well, though. And then I think the better value is obviously through Vegas 2. So it's just kind of a matter of preference for you and how you're building your lineups. And then if you want to, I think Vegas 3, at least Tuckett and Nosek makes sense from a value perspective. For Arizona 1, basically their entire game is going to come against the top 6 of the Golden Knights, who are pretty good defensively. And then even, since Bunting's been moved up there, the numbers are just slightly above average. So not a big fan of Arizona tonight. Anaheim and Colorado. So again, this game, everything is kind of up in the air right now. It's unclear. I'm assuming one player gets scratched tonight. So, somebody did say the game got canceled. Is that true? Is that this game, or was that just because she was screaming and it got canceled? Let me see if I can pull anything up here. And if anybody knows for sure that's been canceled since I've gone live. Oh, Bowen Byram has been added to the COVID-19 list. Okay, so it looks like the game is still a go, but it was Bowen Byram that was added to the list. So that he was already out, so that doesn't really change anything tonight. So that's good to know here. So obviously, Colorado looks great. Again, fire up Colorado. All 4 lines are incredible offensively and incredible defensively. Don't play the Ducks. Obviously, the other night I said don't play the Wild, and they went just ape shit. But at 5v5, Colorado absolutely dominated that game still. The Wild power play just cashed in time and time again. So no Anaheim for me tonight. I am going to try to keep this short. So I'm just going to eliminate Anaheim from the pool here completely. So Colorado 1, basically head-to-head with the Adam Henrique line. Colorado 2 will see quite a bit of the second line, and then Colorado 3 will see quite a bit of the third line. So the best matchup is probably it doesn't really matter, really. Anaheim's just not that great defensively. They're not terrible, but they're not great. Whoever sees the most of that fourth line would obviously be in business, but it looks like that's going to be just kind of everybody except for the McKinnon line, and so there's no real way to get around it. Colorado 2 had a really good game the other night, but I'm just going to continue to fade them and just ride with either pay up for Colorado 1 or pay all the way down for Colorado 3. I'm not going to go to that middle price with Colorado at this point. So obviously Colorado 3 continues to have just ridiculous numbers. Colorado 1, actually slightly worse numbers, which is crazy. Colorado 3, the best numbers on the entire slate still. So looks really, really good for them. If you want to still fire them up as a value play, I think that's definitely the play. In terms of value-wise, Nichushkin still just 3,200, Yost 2,800, Donskoy 4,800, getting up there a little bit, but very reasonable. Full stack Colorado 1, obviously super expensive. You're going to have to find some value out there, but there is value. I've mentioned a couple already. So, nothing, no real fear in going with Colorado 1 or 3. I would expect this team to be pretty hungry after having a pretty ugly performance the other night. And just, Anaheim and John Gibson could be on the wrong side of things tonight. In terms of the power play report, they have the best power play advantage on the entire slate. I did forget to check this for the Vegas, but the Golden Knights have a pretty good power play advantage tonight as well. Fourth biggest on the slate, but Colorado biggest advantage on the slate. Power play is outstanding. The Ducks penalty kill is below average on this slate. So fire up the Avalanche tonight. They're obviously going to be high owned, but for good reason. The final game of the night, we've got the Sharks and the Kings. So obviously, I've talked a lot about San Jose 2 these last couple of weeks, and they still look really, really good. San Jose 1 looks pretty decent, but overall it looks like San Jose 2. And this is matchup driven. It's going to be San Jose 1 head-to-head with the Kopitar line. The Sharks second line is going to see mostly the second line, but also a good portion of the bottom 6 as well. And that's where you're going to get a lot of the plus matchups from the Kings is their second and third line. So that sets up very well for the Hurdle Meyer line. And as I mentioned, obviously their offensive numbers have just been terrific. Almost 18 high danger chances, 4 per 60, 38 scoring chances, 4 per 60. So obviously, they've had they failed us a few times, but when they pay off in a big way. So San Jose 2, pretty good matchup here with the middle 6 of the Kings. with Couture dealing with the Kopitar line most of the night. That limits their upside, and sometimes it's difficult to choose between Sharks 1 and Sharks 2. To me, it's a pretty obvious case for Sharks 2. So yeah, that's that. Power play doesn't look great for either team in this game. So then again, just going quickly over to the goalies, Kakkonen looks terrific at 7,300. If you want to, if you're fading the Blues tonight, I think he is a no-brainer. He's been really good all season long. Obviously, Grubauer had a really tough game the other night, but this is a good matchup against a pretty bad Ducks team. Ducks team that's shorthanded as well. So I like Grubauer. Obviously, he's super duper expensive. It's not something that I want to pay for if I don't have to. I do prefer Kakkonen in probably most lineups, but I do like Robin Lehner quite a bit too. I think that this is a game that they should win against Arizona. So I do have some interest in Robin Lehner, $100 cheaper. Mikey Anderson, 2,700, a good defense punt. Yeah, Mikey Anderson is a good deep punt. He's been just super, not really providing anything in terms of offense. Has yet to score this season, 7 assists, but he plays a ton of minutes. He played 28 minutes the other night. He's been pretty reliable in terms of blocking shots and getting shots on goal this year. So, he doesn't have the highest ceiling ever, but he looks solid overall at 2,700. I will talk about a couple more defensemen here. Let me just fire up this for you guys so you can see where everybody kind of falls on tonight's slate. Obviously, Rangers power play is something that you want to target. They've been red hot, so Adam Fox makes sense. But at 7,000, he's getting almost out of control. Brent Burns would probably be the guy that you want to play with San Jose too, but he's up to 6,000, so it's a little bit more difficult. They do see quite a bit of 5v5 ice time with Erik Karlsson. They don't correlate on the power play, but at 5v5, they look fine. If you want to come off of 6,000 for Burns, my boy Mario Ferraro at 3,400 looks okay. He's been relatively quiet as of late, but still plays a ton of minutes at 3,400. He pairs well with them. For the rest of these blue liners, Spurgeon has obviously been crazy hot. He's on that top power play unit for the Wild too, so he makes a lot of sense if you want to fire that up. He's been red hot. 5,100. The price is obviously climbing a little bit, but if you're playing Minnesota, I think you kind of just got to try to just get different pieces of their power play, and obviously Spurgeon would be a main cog in that. So he looks rock solid there. If you want to still play Minnesota, Dumba looks fine, 4,500. Probably too cheap for how good he is. It wasn't quite as cheap as he has been recently, but I like him there. Vince Dunn's been red hot for us as just kind of like a super steady floor at 3,800. I do like him, although I don't love the Blues tonight. He looks solid. Dmitry Orlov, he's been getting better. He's up with John Carlson tonight, so the minutes should be there. He did only play 16.5 last night, which is a bit curious, but I expected to play with John Carlson tonight, so you expect those minutes to climb. And he pairs okay with Washington 2 or 3, if you do end up going that route. Sean Walker remains one of the best deep punts in the league, just consistent shot volume. The minutes are massive because the Kings blue line's banged up, so he's playing a ton right now. Sean Walker is a terrific deep punt at 3,600, probably my favorite. Brandon Montour continues to produce for whatever reason. He's been red hot, 3,500, no problems there. If you want to play a little bit of the Buffalo top power play, Rasmus Dahlin makes a ton of sense at 3,400. Outside of that, though, not a whole lot down towards the bottom that gets me like overly excited about. I think there's enough value on the slate where you don't need to. If you want to go Ducks, Josh Manson, 2,700. He blocks a ton of shots. That looks fine there. But yeah, nothing crazy jumps out. Dahlin keeps rolling. Yeah, exactly. I just mentioned him. So that's going to do it for today's DFO DFS show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on this Friday edition. I finally kept my promise to actually do a Friday show. Sorry that it's not the regular setting, and we had some distractions in the background, but no big deal. It happens. So I hope you guys enjoyed this show, and I hope you guys enjoy some beers over the weekend. We'll see you guys back here Monday. Enjoy tonight's 7-game slate. Enjoy the weekend slate. Enjoy the Masters. Enjoy it all. So see you guys back here Monday, 5:15 p.m. Eastern. Cheers.